Welcome to Making Real Estate Fetch. This is the podcast where we dumb down real estate knowledge for the average 20-year-old, 20-something, or anyone who needs to just better understand the wide world of real estate. I'm your host, Grace Petro, joined by my co-host, Tyler Ross of Ross Real Estate. Say hi, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
And today we are joined by Stephen Cott, who has come out today to answer my questions about home inspections. Would you like to say hi, Stephen?
Hi, Stephen.
How are you doing today?
Doing great. Doing
You
great.
happy? You feeling good?
I'm happy. I'm feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
We're very happy to have you. Tyler was upset that we're having you on, but he's moving past it.
Yeah, I figure after 20 years of being longer than that,
He
only 25
Finishes
years of
my
being
sentences already,
sandwiches.
probably.
Sentences.
That's a Frozen quote from Tyler to start the podcast.
Okay.
Can you, in layman's terms, tell me what a home inspection is?
Sure, yeah. So a home inspection is an opportunity for a buyer to go in with a home inspector, a licensed home inspector, to do basically any kind of studies on the property that they want to, with the goal of having a better understanding of exactly what it is that they're buying. Things you're going to look for that the home inspector is going to look for are things like issues with the house, things like roof issues, structure issues, appliance issues, your HVAC system, so your heating, your air, your water heater, things like that is basically what they're going to be looking for, just so you have a good understanding of what it is exactly that you're buying and any potential problems that there may be with the property.
We did a home inspection video at one of your listings a while back, and I just want you to say a quick blurb about the sump pump. What is the sump pump?
So a sump pump is basically a hole in the ground that collects water in the event that groundwater or any flooding was going to occur. And it has a pump in there that will pump that water to either the septic system or out into the yard or something like that, because you don't want water in your basement. So.
Yeah, the water, as we've talked about in other episodes, is like the death of a house. So in a well-built house, you'll have a basement with a poured concrete slab that on the interior and sometimes on the exterior, you'll have drain tile in the form of gravel and the actual corrugated pipe with holes in it. And often all those entry points for water that come up from the ground or down from the surface go directed into the crock of your basement, and that's when the sump pump turns on, when the amount of water in that crock gets to a certain level, and then the sump pump pumps that water out of the house.
You track all that?
So when you check it, why is it important to check it? What could possibly be wrong with it that interferes with it passing a home inspection?
Well, for one, there's a pump down in there that's going to pump the water out, and so if that pump's not functioning properly, then when the water does rise, that pump's not going to be able to eject the water out of there. So you're basically just checking it to make sure that the pump's working as it
Is that
should.
something you're qualified to do, or does a home inspector have to do that?
I mean,
an HVAC person.
Home inspector's the best person to do that.
Okay.
From a practical standpoint, you can pull the lid off the crock, you can see the pump, and it's got a float device just like the back of the toilet does. When the water rises up, it lifts the float up and then engages the motor on the pump and pumps all the water out of the house. So if you're a homeowner yourself and you want to make sure your sump pump is working, you can pop the top off the crock, pull the float up, and see if the motor engages. That's the sound that you often hear when it's raining outside and you suddenly hear this this kind of sound of water running through your house, and you go, what on earth is that? Well, it's your sump pump kicking on to get the water out of the house.
Okay, that's so stressful. Do you think that water or fire is more of a disaster to a home?
Oh, either, both.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean,
Both.
A flood or a fire will destroy your house.
I think just like anything, it depends on the severity of either one.
I know you just said that water is like the worst thing that can happen to a house, and I was like, what about fire?
Well, it's because that's the most probable thing. You'll see more flooded basements as a result of frozen pipes or water intrusion from the outside. But I mean, fire can, and not just the fire causes damage, but the smoke causes a ton of damage.
Oh, I'm hit.
It'll ruin all of your stuff. It'll, ruin your house, just enough smoke without even the burning down of the house.
And, that's actually something else that, obviously some fires are preventable and other fires are things that happen as, part of home ownership. But that's something else that a home inspector is going to be looking at, is like your electrical system, things
Right.
like that, to make sure everything's wired properly, and hopefully, reduce the chances of having like an electrical fire or something like that.
It's important to note the limitations of a home inspection, because home inspectors do what they call a visual inspection. So while they will take the face off your electrical panel, they really don't otherwise touch the house. They'll check and make sure your plugs are working, but they're not going to move things out of the way. They're not going to peel back your carpet
Right.
to see what's underneath. They're not going to, it's what they can see.
It's like probable cause. If they suspect an issue, then they hire out and say, like, you need to have this person come check.
That's
this.
exactly right. Yeah, they're going to be looking for indicators that show other potential problems. And if they see something like that, they may flag it and say, for example, if they see something that they think may look structural, well, they're not structural engineers. So they may flag it as possible structural and recommend that you get a structural engineer or somebody like that who's more trained in that specific field to
Right.
come in and take a even closer look. So.
Do you find that people, I guess sellers, will do, I guess, the work that needs to be done to make those like probable cause situations avoided? Like, are there ways to make things look like they're better than they are to get a better home inspection so they can sell the house?
So a lot of times the listing agent will recommend certain things when they come out and for example, if Tyler or myself goes out and looks at a property as a potential listing, we're going to be looking for things that we know a home inspector may flag. I've done hundreds of hours, if not thousands, probably thousands of hours, of time spent with home inspectors. And so at this point, while I'm not a licensed home inspector, I know the main things that they're looking for, and I can certainly flag certain things as defects or possible problems. And so I'm going to help coach a seller client to, hey, before we go on the market, you should probably get this, and this checked out or done so that we avoid problems at the home inspection phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, regardless of the condition that your house is in, a home inspector is going to generate a report with every single deficiency that's no less than 20 or 25 pages to 60 pages.
And even brand new homes. So I've sold a lot of new construction as well, and I still recommend getting a home inspector in there, even though it's
Right.
brand new
Yeah.
and it's gone through codes and county inspections. I still recommend getting a home inspector in there, because even on those, they're still going to find things that maybe
Just in
were
like how it was
overlooked.
built and stuff.
Yeah, normally they're not major things, and normally they're things that can be remedied pretty quickly. And most of the time, builders are very good at going back and fixing any little things that they do find. But inevitably, they're going to find something. Yeah.
How long does the process take, both like you with a home inspector in the home, how long does the inspection take, and then how long does it take for him or her to write up your inspection? And where does that fall in the window of the process of buying a house?
Yeah. So typically, when if you want to take a look at the whole purchasing process, you write an offer, the offer gets accepted, and then typically you'll have X number of days, whatever you've negotiated for a home inspection period. Typically, it's 7 to 10 days usually, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But 7 to 10 days usually to get the home inspector in there and perform the home inspection. The home inspection itself, it depends on the square footage of the house, but generally I would say anywhere from 3 to 5 hours probably for the home inspection window. I typically like for the buyer to be there at least for part of that inspection. If they're not, they're welcome to be there for the whole inspection, but if they don't want to sit around for 5 hours,
Yeah, it's kind of grueling.
I'll be there for the whole thing, and then they can come in towards the end if they want, and the home inspector can just go through the whole list of everything they found at that
So they
point.
tell you at the end,
Yeah.
before they generate their
Kind of
report?
a walkthrough with the inspector at the end of their inspection, and they, while it's 60 pages worth of things, they'll usually highlight the priority items and show a seller or a buyer, here are the things that are most important. I'll give you the inspection usually within 24 hours.
That's crazy.
And they
so
also
much of it is like form and in order, so they kind of are filling
Punching
out
stuff
their
in.
inspection as they're going along. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're also going to prioritize things as like major issues, something
Right.
structural, for example, or a big leak problem or something like that. It's going to be more, big deal. Also, they'll flag things as safety issues if it's something safety related, like handrails missing or, something electrical or something like that. They'll flag that as
hazards.
trip hazards, major safety problems. And then one of the other things that they do that a lot of people don't realize that is one of the reasons I like my buyers to be there is they're also going to give you a lot of helpful tips for that particular house, for owning that home. For example, where the water main shutoff is. Let's say you're at home and you're just doing regular stuff, and all of a sudden there's water flooding out of something in the basement, or you break the nozzle in the shower and you've got water shooting out everywhere, or a toilet's running and overflowing and won't stop. It's important that you know quickly where is that water main shut off, and so that you can get to it quickly. And if you weren't paying attention, or you just moved into that house and that happens, you may not know where it is because it's not always obvious. And the home inspector is going to point that out, and so that's like super useful, tip as a homeowner. Things like filters, where your air filters are to change, and things like that are very, very important to know as a homeowner, and something that the inspector is going to point out for you.
If a homeowner can stick it out for the entire time, would you recommend they do, or are they in the way?
I would generally say they're in the way. An inspector will get in there, do their work. Some of them are more amenable to having someone looking over their shoulder the whole time, but I think, frankly, they should just let them do their job for 2, 3, 4 hours, and then be there for the summary.
So I agree for the most part, but I also think that a lot of times, at least from my experience, when I show somebody the house, we're in and out of there pretty quickly, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So a lot of times what I recommend, the client to do, because this is their opportunity to go back in and spend good time there. And so they can do other things while the home inspector is doing their job. Things like take measurements for furniture, start picking out paint colors that they wanted, things like that. Because after I moved into my house, I was still finding little, nooks and things like that I didn't notice necessarily. They're there for the home inspection, but also it's an opportunity for them to start to psychologically feel like it's home and kind of make it their own home in their own mind.
As long as they're not breathing down the home inspector.
That's correct. Yeah, you don't want to get in the way, because the more you're talking to the home inspector, the more likely it is that they could possibly miss something. So, I think you don't want to be a distraction, but I think it's fine for you to be there and check out other stuff.
I'm always very curious about etiquette, just because I'm a people pleaser. So I'm like, I don't want to piss anyone off, but there's so many things in real estate where it's like you should be present for that, and I couldn't tell if this was one. So like being in the house, maybe nearby for some of it, just not walking.
Ultimately, as realtors, we know a little bit about everything in the process, so it positions us to be really good kind of project managers, where we're managing negotiations, managing contracts, managing home inspections, managing appraisals, and communicating on their level with whatever it is. So if you don't know how to behave or what to do, just lean on your realtor and they'll give you the best advice.
Yeah.
Why do you have to be there the whole time?
So one of the main reasons is, if you go back to kind of the structure and the flow of the whole contract process, you have the home inspection phase. Well, once the home inspector gives you that list of deficiencies, of problems that they found with the house, typically you're going to go back to the seller, you're going to write up an addendum, and you're going to go back to the seller and you're going to say, hey, look, we still want to buy the house, but we want you to fix this, this, and this. And that opens up a negotiation period. Well, in order for me to effectively convey the issues that were found, I'm going to lean on the home inspection report, but it helps if I've been there physically to see it with my own eyes, so that when I'm relaying that information over to the seller's agent, I can, for example, say there was a small leak under the hall bathroom sink, on the right side. Just anything like that I can help to kind of say, here's what we saw, here's what we found, and get that across, can help, in my opinion, with the whole process.
It's you asked the question, why do you have to be there
is it a
as the
requirement?
realtor? It is not. You can get permission from the seller to allow the home inspector in there on their own, but I'm going to say that only a lousy real estate agent, buyer's agent, is going to allow an inspector in there on their own. Stephen is there the entire time for the reasons that he said. One, he's a good realtor and cares about the people that he's working with, and wants to make sure that the house is reviewed appropriately.
Right.
And just the fact that he gets to communicate with that home inspector and understand any of the notations on there. Like one of the most dangerous things you ever read is possible structural issues, consult a structural engineer. That sounds really catastrophic. But if Steven's there with the home inspector and he says, you know, it's really not a big deal, it's just a crack, throw a little mortar in and seal it, it's fine. But, you know, I'm not qualified, or this is the way I have to write it. It's a communication thing. Like, some home inspectors don't get business because they poorly communicate minor issues to a buyer, and then it freaks them out. So it's a very human thing. Someone that's good at communicating problems versus someone that's not good at communicating problems. So the more that you're there, the more you can help manage expectations and manage issues, and because you just simply have a deeper understanding of it. I just had someone allow a home inspector in on a listing without the buyer or the seller, or I'm sorry, without the buyer or the buyer's agent. All they had was the report. They had no other knowledge. So when they tried to beat me up over the home inspection, I was able to negate all of those issues because they really didn't know what they were talking about.
Right.
So somebody like Steven, someone who's going to be there the whole time, is a genuine benefit to a buyer.
And I want to go back to you saying, because one of my questions was like, if I want something fixed as the buyer, what does that look like? And you were talking about negotiations. Is it my job to pay for that? Is it the previous homeowners? Like, we're going to get into vanity versus necessity, but where is that line in negotiations?
So typically the buyer pays for the home inspection itself. You're paying for the service of the home inspector. When we go back to the seller and ask them to pay for any items or fix any items beforehand, the typical way that the addendum reads is that it has to be done by a professional who's qualified to do that scope of work. So for example, if it's electrical, you need somebody who's qualified to do electric. And so who's paying for it is negotiable, but generally when you're asking the seller to do it, you're asking the seller to pay for it as well. Now, the seller doesn't have to agree to do any of it. They don't have to agree to do all of it. They can agree to do some of it, that type of thing. So there's a negotiation window where you kind of go back and forth and say, okay, we'll do this, but we're not going to do this. And then hopefully at the end of that negotiation, you've reached an agreement. Another thing that some people do is, instead of fixing the actual issues, they'll give the buyer a credit. So they'll say, okay, in the interest of time, there's a couple minor things here that he found, and we agree that, we understand those are issues. Instead of us having somebody come out and fix it, we'll give you $3,000 towards your closing cost or something like that. They'll give you some kind of credit, or we'll reduce the sales price by $3,000 or something like that. So all those are, options.
And it's important to point out too that the home inspection is 9 times out of 10 your first get out of jail free card as the buyer. It's not free, but the cost is the cost of the home inspection, $500 or $600, where you go under contract, you ratify, and then you have 7 days to do a home inspection. You do the home inspection, and then the buyer will present to the seller either that list, like Steven said, or they won't present any list at all in advance towards buying the house, or they reserve the right to void the contract and get their deposit back. So it's important just to note that the home inspection period is really kind of your chance to get out of the contract for whatever reason you want.
Right. And go ahead.
And ultimately, what you choose to ask for is up to you, as the buyer. And so some things may be very minor that, you just say, you know what, I feel like we, we're in pretty good shape here. These are all minor things. Maybe the ice maker on the refrigerator, doesn't work properly or something like that.
So they say everything.
They test, like Tyler said, what they can see. But yes, your major appliances, in addition to like your HVAC and your water heater, they're also going to test your dishwasher, assuming there is one. They're going to test your refrigerator, your freezer, any of those type of appliances, the ovens, things like that. They're going to check to make sure they're all working. But if you're buying the house and you're planning on replacing the fridge anyway, do you really care if the ice maker is working or not? Maybe not worth getting fixed.
What are the things that they'll say, like, you can't move into this house because this is a danger or hazard or whatever?
The home inspector will never really tell you can't move into a house. They might advise not to take residents in a house due to they're not allowed to identify mold as mold unless they actually do a mold test, but they could I mean, we can clearly look at a basement or somewhere that's riddled with mold, and they might say possible fungal intrusion or something, but we all know it's floor-to-ceiling mold. Don't move in until all that's mitigated.
Yeah, if they, they're human. If they find something that's catastrophically dangerous, like a major structural issue where they feel like this house could fall in on
It's
itself
not
at any
safe,
point,
yeah.
or like Tyler said, even though they're not supposed to use the M word, for mold, you can tell when you've got a huge amount of fungal growth or whatever going on. If they see something like that, they may say, "Look, I don't think it's safe for anybody to be in here." But yeah, they're not going to come out and just straight up say, "Don't move into this house." Typically,
Okay.
I've never run into that myself.
Well, I didn't know if it was their job, like, to be the people who are like, the seller screwed up and this house is not sound and like structurally safe, so they need to fix this, this, and this before anyone could be in this house type thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it is their
that
job to say that, but they don't make that determination.
Right. They're not empowered to keep you from moving in if they want to.
Yeah. They can't condemn the home or anything.
Even if everything, like, you get this 60-page thing and it's like this house is just a freaking wreck, you as the buyer can still be like, and move in.
Yeah.
But your agent would obviously say, like, hey, like, it's the agent's job to kind of be like, let's go through this and talk about what this could mean for you. You know what I mean?
Inform and educate, and then let somebody make their own decision.
Present them with options. Yeah, present them with options. Here are your options. Here are maybe some things to consider, and then ultimately it's the buyer's decision at that point.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, in addition to doing the home inspection report, there are add-ons that you can ask the home inspector to do, like a mold test. That doesn't come in standard. Not every home inspector offers mold testing, but most of them have an outlet to do mold testing, and most of them are able to do radon testing as well.
Different home inspectors offer different things too. Like I've known some that have the ability to send a camera into the sewer line to actually check out the sewer line to make sure that everything, nothing's backed up in there. You're not going to have some huge, So, not all of them do that. Some of them have the thermal guns where they go around and they're checking, because like Tyler said, you can't see what's behind the walls. And so one way to kind of get an indication of what is behind the walls potentially is to use one of those thermal guns that can pick up, water and changes in temperature. You can see where maybe there's leaks in ductwork, air conditioning ductwork, where you're losing heat behind the wall. Well, it's not a major, it's not a structural issue. It's not a safety issue. But you're losing money, by heating the space behind the wall instead of it going through the ducts and into the living space.
And I lost that question, but I do remember my one from a while ago, so here we go, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
As a renter, do I have any rights or reason to get a home inspection? Like, if I feel like I'm being kind of screwed on a rental price or anything like that, is that something that I can do?
That is a great question.
For an attorney.
That is for an attorney. But ultimately, it boils down to, what does your lease say? The lease is the guiding document for your agreement, between the renter and the landlord. And so it really comes down to what that says. Typically in those situations, most of the time it's on the landlord, the property owner, to repair reasonable things that are needed. Your dishwasher goes out, something like that. It's typically on them. Sometimes there's like a deductible where the renter has to pay the first $100, and then the landlord pays anything over that. But as far as a full home inspection, I've never had a renter do a full home inspection on a property.
No, I want to point out two other limitations. Well, there are plenty more, but of a home inspection is they're not going to inspect your well, and they're not going, if you're on a well, if you're on town, they're not going to inspect your town water.
You mean like a test, like a water test?
They won't do a water test, and they won't check your well line. They won't check your sewer line in most cases.
Unless you're paying for it.
And
there were some that'll do it.
And there are septic tanks and septic fields that need to be inspected, and home inspector won't do that either. That will be done by a septic inspection company. So there are lots more investigations you can do in a house beyond just a home inspection.
Do you think it's more common that people just get like the generalized inspection, or do you find that people are more thorough?
So
People should be more thorough.
people should be very thorough. But that kind of brings up something that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and that is that, in my opinion, a home inspection is incredibly, incredibly important if you can get one. A couple of years ago, home inspections were like basically automatic. It was, you write an offer, of course you're going to ask for a home inspection, and the seller's going to agree to it. Well, in the last couple of years, the market has gotten so competitive that in a lot of cases, people were waiving the home inspection and not doing it. And so,
Which is like within your right to do. You don't.
it's in
need
your
to
right
get
to
it.
do. It's not automatic. You have to ask for it in the contract.
Even
And
if you're getting a loan, they don't make you do a home
that's
inspection.
correct.
Correct.
That's correct. You don't have to do a home inspection. There's certain inspections and certain loan programs that you do have to do. For example, some loan programs require that you do what's called a wood destroying insect inspection, which
Yes.
they look for termites, carpenter bees, things like that. So
Destroy.
some loan programs do require certain ones, but to the best of my knowledge, none of them require a home inspection, because a home inspection is really for the buyer's information. That said, I mean, I will never tell a buyer client to waive a home inspection, but I will sometimes explain to them that due to the competitive circumstances of a particular property, that in gathering information,
You mean taking that time.
you may
I
have
see, I
to
see.
consider waiving it if you want to be competitive. I'll never tell you to waive it, but you may have to if you want to be competitive in getting this property. Because if they have 5 other offers that are way above asking price and they've
Right.
all waived home inspections and things like that, either you're gonna have to make the determination, yes, I may be willing to do that, or no, that scares me. And a lot of clients, they do say no, I'm sorry, like I'm happy to pay the price, but I just can't bring myself to waive a home inspection. And I get it. Like I don't even like ordering jeans online because I like to try them on first. So the idea of buying a home with no home inspection is like, anxiety
Yeah, that's a
inducing to
nightmare.
say the least. But a lot of people have done it over the last couple of
If
years.
you're going to buy a $500,000 house, paying a home inspector $600, paying a septic inspector $600, paying a WDI inspector $65, paying a well water water test, and then a well inspection, it's the $1,500.
What was the price of that house?
$500,000.
Okay.
So if you're buying, I think the average price in Fauquier is like $480 or something. So if you're going to spend $1,500 doing your due diligence, investigations, and studies and inspections, that is basically insurance to
Exactly.
prevent you from buying
Yeah.
a house for $485 that you don't want because
Or
of
that
it-
is
because of
actually
its condition.
6 something with all the repairs and everything you have to make.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
important to know what you're buying when you're spending $500,000.
Your life away.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a fun question. Okay, so we've reached. You answered my next written question, which was about my budget, is what I should put into having these inspections and things. But now I'm curious, the worst thing that you've seen, or the most thrilling thing, like during a home inspection. Like, did you find a secret room, or was there like a body, or like, a trove of what are those like devil worshippers? Do you know what I'm talking about? The things that they drink, chalices and
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever found anything just like absolutely crazy during a home inspection that you've witnessed?
Seen some bizarre things in homes, just generally seeing them, where people will leave out paraphernalia and you go, you couldn't at least just like shove that in a drawer before you left so that we didn't have to see it?
Certain things on the nightstand.
Oh yeah.
Or the coffee table.
Whoops. Yeah.
Coffee table.
But the the only thing I can think of it's not really interesting, it's just kind of catastrophic. It's, the
That's
floor
fine.
joists are eaten alive by termites, or, so the house is ready to, basically cave in on itself.
I was at one where the home inspector, he was taking a level and putting it up against some of the walls, because he saw some indications that maybe some of the walls were not flush. And so he was doing that, and he noticed that they were off kilter a little bit. He went to the outside of the house, literally took his hands and pushed on it, and the whole wall moved. And that, of course, at that point, my clients were like, we're done,
Wow.
we're backing out of this one. So,
That's so
we
scary.
finished up the home inspection. He, checked over a few more things just so he could at least give us a full report so that we could, exit the contract. And that was probably the craziest, most oh my gosh, this house is about to fall.
I want the dirt. I want the dirt.
The hairy homeowner stuff where people are obviously trying to conceal material defects in a house.
That's what I was asking earlier.
Yeah.
Like, what is an example of that? Like painting over something, or like hiding something.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely painting over things.
I mean, that's a
Or
landlord special.
trying
but-
to hide smells because they couldn't find a dead animal in a wall or in an attic or something. Like just one too many Glade plug-ins, and
Yeah.
you start scratching your head about, all right.
It's
Yeah.
also a dead animal. You know it. You know that smell. You're like,
Yeah.
that's what that is, and I just need to find it. It's the worst.
Yeah.
I had a dead mouse behind my fridge for like a week, and my fiance and his brother, my brother-in-law, didn't believe me. I was like, "There's something behind the fridge." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It smells. There's something
Yeah,
dead.
that dead smell.
And they were like, "We looked everywhere. We couldn't find it." And I couldn't move the fridge on my own because there was all this stuff on top of it, and I'm all 5'4" on a good day.
Yeah.
And finally, it took me like an hour to get everything together. Dead mouse.
Mm.
You know when there's a dead mouse
yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
Have you, okay, while we're here, before we wrap, have you ever heard of anything like super crazy, like bigger than a mouse? Like, oh my God, there's a dead deer in the walls. Or like someone living in the walls, like froggers,
No, just
I sold a house where a murder took place.
Okay,
I sold one.
Tell.
Suicide. Yeah, it was suicide. I sold one.
Murder. It was a stabbing.
where? Without disclosing the address.
Marshall.
Where? Can you give me a vantage point?
No, that's all I can
What
say.
about off air? Can you off air?
Oh, meth houses.
Sure.
That's one.
I don't. To the best of my knowledge, I've never been in a clear meth house before.
I've been in one and it was weird with like beakers and all
Really?
kinds of stuff everywhere. And
Wow.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've shown any of those, but yeah, murder house. I did sell it.
So fun.
I did sell
I'm
it.
proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
That really
It was
speaks to your
early in
character.
my real estate career.
Make a break.
And honestly, one of the things that went with that is that's not a material fact that changes anything about.
Well, in Virginia, you don't have to disclose that, right?
You don't have to disclose it, and in fact, you're not even supposed to. Now, if the buyer Googles it and happens to find the address and sees that happened there, so be it. But it doesn't affect or impact the physical value of the house. So it's really kind of a non-issue. But it was
I would disagree. But did you tell the buyer?
No.
Or did they find out on their own
I think they found out on their own.
while you were working with them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't bother them.
It would bother me. We have to soon wrap. So if there's anything else that you guys are just feeling like you need to say, now's your time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like I said, I've said it already. My recommendation is always get a home inspection.
Right.
There's going to be other inspections that you're going to go through as part of the process: well inspections, septic inspections, wood destroying insect inspections. But the first line of defense, and the one that's going to give you the most overall value, most bang for your buck, most insight into the condition of the home, and valuable tips that'll help you become a better homeowner for that particular property, is getting a home inspection. Working with a good licensed home inspector. If you don't already know one, your agent should have some that they can recommend. Hopefully that they've worked with for a while, they trust. And that's basically it. Just part of doing your due diligence, because buying a home is going to be one of, if not the most expensive purchase you ever make, and one of the biggest investments you ever make.
Right.
So you want to make sure you're protected.
Your best investment, one might say.
And I'll say home inspection reports are not just for buyers. I've recommended many times that a seller get a home inspection prior to putting their house on the market. One, it sets expectations for what a buyer's home inspection might look like, so you mitigate any surprises down the road. And two, it kind of gives you a honey-do list of things to kind of work on between that moment and the moment you're ready to go on the market. And personally, I make a habit of doing a home inspection at least once every year or two in my own house, just to keep an eye on, the little pieces of rotted wood and the caulk that's deteriorated, and just keep an eye on my roof and the grading around the house and making sure water's not sneaking in somewhere. So if you own a home, it's worth doing a home inspection. If you're getting ready to sell a home, it's often worth it. And if you're going to buy a home, it's worth it. So
all across the board, we're pro home inspection.
Pro home inspection.
Wow. That was cute.
And I'll tell you another, thinking back on your one about crazy things that you saw in the house, just one little tidbit
Yeah,
for you.
no, absolutely.
So it was actually at one of his listings. And I went out there to show the property, and there was a coffin in the
Oh my
garage.
God.
There was
Please
a
tell me about
coffin
this.
in the garage. And I called Tyler, and I'm like,
about that.
how did you not tell me there was a full-size coffin?
Was someone in it?
I didn't open it, but I didn't
What
smell
are you talking
anything.
about? What are you talking about?
think
Why was
he-
it there?
I
Did
think
they
he
make
built
it?
it for himself.
A full-size coffin, and I called Tyler. I'm like, "How did you not tell me there was a coffin in the garage?" And he started cracking up laughing. He's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot
Did
about
you
that."
know?
Oh,
Yeah, he
it was
knew.
my listing. Yeah,
And you were
just-
showing it? You were showing
I
it.
was showing it. It wasn't a home inspection, but it was
Like
crazy.
in front of clients, you were like, "Oh,
We walked into the garage, and there was
it's a hell of an omen."
Yeah.
I've been
Shock.
I've been to home. That might have been even been that same house that had a pool.
Had a pool in the backyard.
Yeah.
It wasn't, the pool wasn't in great shape at all.
No, I've seen like creatures in
Oh.
pools. I'm talking like the length from elbow to the tip of my middle finger, that big.
Floating.
Alive and dead. I'm
Alive and
talking
dead.
like
Are you talking
somebody-
about like moles and stuff?
talking about? Oh yeah, definitely like.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen a deer, but I've
Yeah.
definitely
There's
seen
definitely.
live stuff like koi, or like goldfish that'll somehow make their way in there. Frogs the size of softballs.
Frogs make sense. I don't
Yeah.
think you've ever seen a koi
A
in
rat
a
or
public
a-
pool.
Yeah,
Get like a
critters and stuff.
Raccoon or something in there.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Koi.
Get to fish that out.
Yeah.
You've seen a koi fish in a chlorine pool.
Oh, it had
There's no
been treated in
chlorine.
in
No, we're talking
15
about
years.
abandoned pools
We're talking
that
about
have gone to
Cletus's-
nature.
Yeah, Cletus's cement pond.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
a pond now. You couldn't
see-
see 3 inches into the water. It was that thickly green.
I'll tell you this too. It is amazing how quick a house will deteriorate and go to nature when people aren't living in it.
Oh yeah.
Shocking. Matter of months, and things can go really, really haywire in a house. So,
Yeah.
so even if like you're selling a house and you move out of it, the one mistake people make is they turn the electricity off. They turn things like that. Don't do that. Pay the electric. Keep the AC running or the heat running. Keep things moving and stuff like that, because the house will go to crap quick. So.
Wonderful. Well, I feel like we got so much covered. Stephen, thank
Good.
you. You were
Thank
a real
you.
fountain of knowledge today. Tyler, as always, it's been a pleasure. Did
I'm gonna
you?
go around telling everybody I'm a fountain of knowledge.
Well, I told Dave Kaut that too, so you can't tell that many people.
Okay. Well, Dave is a fountain of knowledge, just not about home inspections, but lending, fountain of knowledge.
Stop hitting the table.
Sorry.
I'm gonna hear it every time.
You're looking at me and saying that.
Because you've been doing it for the past 2 episodes. Steven's only been here for 1 episode.
All right.
Wow, she's
All right.
yelling at
Hands
me like
off.
she's
Hands
told
off.
me before.
Okay, on 3, we're gonna say like a bye. You know what I mean? How do you
What?
feel about that?
What?
He'll be all right.
Okay, ready?
Like we're gonna go bye like
yeah,
that?
in unison, like you guys did about the whatever that cute thing was you did, pro home inspection.
That's
Okay,
just
ready?
natural though.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Bye.